What is going on, Bucks fans? Evan Wanish here, back at you with yet another video for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, today we're just going to be having a discussion here, and the discussion is going to be about Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles and whether or not Todd Bowles should be on the hot seat this coming season. Now, I know that a lot of people probably didn't expect this to be happening at this point. I think if you asked any Bucks fan this time last year, they would have thought that, oh, there's no way that the Buccaneers are going to have a losing record with Tom Brady and barely make the playoffs and sort of get embarrassed in that playoff game. But that's what happened. And the Buccaneers went 8-9 last year. The expectations were obviously much higher than that. Anytime you have guys like Tom Brady on your roster, the expectation's going to be at least a deep playoff run. That did not happen. The Buccaneers did win the division, but it was more of a product of the division being pretty bad. So let's get right into it. And I want to look at not just Todd Bowles with the Buccaneers, because I want to look at this past history as well. The last time he was a head coach was with the New York Jets. Real quick, just before we get into the specifics of what he's done in Tampa Bay, let's take a look at his records with the Jets because it's not great. And I do think it's going to come back to maybe hurt him in the long run here. So in 2015, his first year as a Jets head coach, he went 10-6. I mean, a really good year. The Jets have been a team that didn't have much winning ways, and Todd Bowles takes over. They go 10-6. Believe Ryan Fitzpatrick played pretty well that year. 2016, 5-11. So he went from 10-6 to 5-11, 5 less wins. That's not good enough. And that is just, and I understand there was some stuff with Fitzpatrick's contract and all that. And let me just get this out of the way. During his time with the Jets, Todd Bowles was not always working with the greatest rosters in the world. I will give him some slack there. I'll cut him some slack there. He was not working with the greatest rosters. He wasn't working with the greatest quarterbacks. I think right now the Bucs roster, as it currently stands, is probably more talented than a lot of those Jets rosters were. But the thing that worries me is the quarterback. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But the following year, 2017, he went 5-11 again. And then 2018 went 4-12 before he was fired. The Jets brought in Adam Gase, and that was sort of a circus. But anyways, Todd Bowles took over the team, went 10-6, and then followed it up with 3 straight losing seasons, including getting worse from 5-11 all the way down to 4-12. So not a good sign for Todd Bowles there. Obviously, he comes to Tampa as the defensive coordinator in 2019, is the defensive coordinator in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Wins the Super Bowl in 2020 with a masterful game plan in the Super Bowl game itself, and really the whole playoffs. The defense at times really carried the Bucs team. There was times that the offense did not play well, and the defense really stepped up. It was a welcome sign. Todd Bowles' defense was a welcome sign from what the Bucs and their fans had endured over the past few years with guys like Mike Smith and Lovie Smith, and it was just it was a lot of bad football, bad defense being played. So I think Todd Bowles' defense was a breath of fresh air. But then obviously Bruce Arians retires. Todd Bowles really doesn't really get an interview per se, sort of gets the job. And I think that was always going to be the plan for him to get the job. He had head coaching experience before. I don't think they wanted to hand it to Byron Leftwich, who didn't have any experience. So Bowles, with some head coaching experience, takes over a team that's ready to go. And what ends up happening is the Buccaneers go 8-9. So after a 2-0 start, mind you. So they went 6-9 the rest of the season after starting off 2-0. And there was a few things that had happened. Obviously, the roster wasn't as talented as 2020 and 2021. No, I would say it probably wasn't. You got to keep in mind the Buccaneers in 2020 and 2021 had guys like Alex Kappa. They had guys like Ali Marpet. They had Rob Gronkowski. They had healthy Ryan Jensen. I just named 3 offensive linemen right there. So I think that matters a lot. Todd Bowles, you can't control injuries. Ryan Jensen goes down on the first or second day of training camp. Alex Kappa leaves for the Bengals in free agency. You got to adjust for that. and Rob Gronkowski does not return, with Tom Brady out of retirement. And it was just Ali Marpet retires. It was a perfect storm, I think, for the offensive line and the offense in general. Not to mention, obviously, midway through the 2020 season, you had Antonio Brown. The rest of the 2021, well, most of the 2021 season, you had Antonio Brown. Now you don't. You signed Russell Gage. They just weren't as talented. Now, that being said, that still doesn't mean that the Buccaneers didn't come unprepared at times. The decision making at times was suspect, I guess you could say, on Todd Bowles' part a few times, I think, throughout the season. Specifically in the Cleveland game, I remember the one that the Buccaneers lost in overtime, a tough one to lose. And I remember there was a few decisions in that game that Todd Bowles played a little too conservative, and you can tell he's a defensive minded coach. And look, that's okay. I'm not saying that defensive minded coaches can't work in the NFL, but it was a little too conservative when you have a guy like Tom Brady on your team. And again, to cut Todd Bowles some slack, Tom Brady was not the Tom Brady this past season. I'm a huge Tom Brady guy. You might not find a bigger Tom Brady guy than myself, but he wasn't the same player, right? There was definitely at times where he was not playing great football. And that didn't, there's nothing Bowles could do about that. You weren't going to bench him, obviously. So, but then there was a couple of losses there. The Pittsburgh loss, the Carolina loss, back to back against two teams that were struggling at the time. That stuff can't happen. So now we enter 2023. And the thing about it is this is a critical year for Todd Bowles. And I don't know how things are going to shake out. No, also, let me just preface this by saying I don't know what's in the Glazers' minds. I don't know what's in Jason Light's minds. What do they consider a successful season? I don't know if you can consider, playoffs or bust. I don't know about that because the roster has gone over a good bit of turnover. There's a lot of young pieces now that are going to be trying to fit in. I think if the Bucks win seven or eight games but miss the playoffs, I still think you see probably Todd Bowles stick around. But I'll tell you, I think he needs to win probably at least 7, I would say, to be confident that he's gonna be back. Anything below that, 6, 5, I I don't know if he's gonna be back. So to ask if he's on the hot seat, to answer that question, I would say he probably is. Maybe not hot. I'd say his seat's getting warm, though. His seat is getting warm. And the last thing he needs is a slow start to the season. The last thing he needs to help keep his job is a slow start. Now, the Buccaneers, I don't believe they have ever fired a coach midseason. They have never fired a head coach midseason. So I don't know if I would expect that. But obviously, you start off at Minnesota versus Chicago versus Philly at New Orleans versus Detroit versus Atlanta in the first 6 games. If the Buccaneers are 1-5 at that point, 2-4, you're going to see a lot of heat start to come on Todd Bowles, I think. So I do think that seat's warm. It has the potential to get hotter, that's for sure. And for Todd Bowles' sake, hey, like I hope everything works out for the Buccaneers' sake. I'm not going to be sitting here rooting for the Buccaneers to lose just because, any type of feeling towards Todd Bowles. That's not the case. But I also know that a lot of fans are frustrated with Bowles. A lot of fans wanted Bowles fired last year. And hey, I'm not going to argue with that. Like, I'm not going to argue. That's your opinion. I'm not going to argue with that. The team definitely underperformed. 8-9, a losing record with Tom Brady is unacceptable. So you have to answer the question: if he had a losing record with Tom Brady, how is he going to have a winning record or even replicate the same 8 wins without Tom Brady? That's tough. That's a difficult thing to answer, and I'm sure Todd Bowles, Jason Light, and the Glazers are even thinking that themselves. So, to answer the question, the ultimate question of is Todd Bowles on the hot seat, I guess you could say yes, even though right now I'd say it's more warm than anything. But I do think he needs at least 7 wins, Maybe if he gets 6 wins, depending on what happens during the season, injuries can happen at any point. They're impossible to predict. So depending on what happens in the season that leads to maybe 6 wins, maybe he gets to stick around. But I would think anything below 6 wins, I would think the pressure would be pretty high on him, and I'm not sure he'd be able to survive that. Jason Light's another story. I think we're going to have a video coming out on Jason Light here shortly as well. So let me know what you guys think about Todd Bowles. Let me know what you guys think of the job he did last year in 2022. Let me know, are you confident in Todd Bowles this coming season in 2023? Do you think he's on the hot seat? If you don't, tell me why. If you do, tell me why. Please let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and talk soon.